Freunde, es ist mal wieder Zeit für ein kontroverses Video. Why the DTM-Finale was a complete joke von 2021. Norisring, let's go.
Alright. So this DTM business has got everyone pissed off. It's put a stain on a bunch of characters, and all anyone is talking about is just how bad it was. There is a lot to take in, there is a lot to unpack, but the long and short of it is that irrespective of me having the same passport as one of these drivers, what transpired throughout the entire weekend of racing has to be some of the worst junk that has ever taken place in motorsport. It sounds like I'm having a whinge here, and I probably am, but this whole weekend was universally condemned, so I'ma lay it out here and dissect what in God's name this whole thing was about.
Ja, kleine Info, Kelvin van der Linde, Liam Lawson und Maximilian Götz konnten da noch Titel holen.
Now, before we get down to it, let me preface this by saying that some people in this vid are going to get a grilling. But whatever you do, don't go on social media or whatever and start issuing some of these guys death threats and shit. But that's not on. Sure, we've got opinions on what happened, and we'd all love a proper explanation without any PR jargon as to who did what to who. We're all passionate about this stuff, but let's try not to make the situation worse by throwing fuel on the fire, you feel me? Now,
Doch, ich schreibe gleich Kelvin nochmal, hey, was sollte das mit dem Finale 2021?
time to throw fuel on the fire. First up, I'm going to offer some context here. For those of you unawares, the DTM is a GT championship based in Germany, with half of its events not taking place in Germany because reasons. This year saw a massive change from the prototype S touring cars that produce some cool
Ach ja.
racing, albeit lost a lot of ground in terms of manufacturer support, and so moved over to GT cars in order to survive.
GG Gerhard.
A lot of people didn't like this, as to them, it felt like the soul and essence of DTM was no longer there. But what it did mean was that GT cars that you would normally see in long-ass endurance races with like 2 or 3 drivers at the helm were now being used in sprint format by just one driver. The upshot? Instead of just Beamer and Merc, the series now had Lambos and Ferraris, making this championship about as German as... Nah, I can't use that joke. Anyway, ignoring the Austrians for a bit, the focus of this video is what took place in the final round at the Norisring. And heading into it, there were 3 drivers in the running for the championship. There was Maximilian Götz, Germany's fastest accountant, but thought to be more of an outside
Germany's fastest accountant, Alter.
chance than anything. Actually, why do all of Germany's GT aces look like they work in a tax office? Chance than anything. Actually, why do all of Germany's GT aces look like they work in a tax
Digga, die sehen einfach wirklich beide aus wie der nächste Steuerberater.
office? Bugger it. There was Kelvin van der Linde, South African GT ace that looks like that guy out of the Jungle Book. And finally,
Ich frage mich, ob Kelvin dieses Video gesehen hat. Das ist ja mal grandios.
there was Liam Lawson, Red Bull Junior driver from New Zealand, who was also competing in Formula 2 and rattling some cages in there as well. Those were the 3 players, and while Götz had kinda kept to himself, tensions were boiling over between Kelvin and Liam. It started off relatively benign, with nothing that would indicate that these two would lock horns later on. Where it really started to sour was at the Nürburgring. During the second race, after receiving a puncture from Maxi Götz, Liam was forced to move his way back up the pack, and after having caught van der Linde, he spotted a gap just wide enough for a Ferrari. But
Ui.
Kelvin was having none of it, pretty much forced him onto the green, and ended up taking Mike Rockenfeller out of the race, with the both of them joining him in retirement. Both Audi drivers were pretty pissed at Liam for what they described as overly aggressive driving. The irony, I mean, was it too aggressive? I mean, maybe. I don't know. This could be my passport talking here. Things were pretty heated going into the second to last round at Hockenheim, and when van der Linde decided to get familiar with Lawson's rear end, the damage inflicted just about melted the Ferrari before it could reach the finish line.
Boah.
So we've got 2 dudes here who are already in a tight battle going into the final round, whilst Götz here was just chilling and kind of taking inventory of the whole thing. The final round was to be held at the Norisring in Nuremberg. The track may look simple, but it definitely throws a challenge or two. The point situation was such: Lawson was in the lead from van der Linde by 14 points. Sounds like a bit, but with 56 points on offer that weekend, it wasn't impossible for van der
Ja, man kriegt halt 25 Punkte pro Sieg und 3 Punkte kann man für eine Pole kriegen.
Linde, nor was it for Götz, and technically for Marco Wittmann. Alex Albon though? Nah, he was way out of it. And for that particular round, he wouldn't be racing, as AF Corsa drafted in Super Formula champion and all-round GC, Nick Cassidy. With these 2 Kiwis as teammates heading into this round, we effectively had motor racing's equivalent of Flight of the Conchords. What, you don't think they can sing?
Tell me why.
Break. Yeah.
Geil.
Tell me why.
That sort of Kiwi duality is just beautiful. I'ma call it Kia Kaha. Yeah, you got no
Keine Ahnung.
idea what the f I'm on about, don't you? Anyways, after struggling initially with pace in the early practice sessions, a major change in setup helped Liam get back up to the front, and come time for the first qualifying session that weekend, he would start on the pole ahead of Van der Linde. This wasn't great news for the South African, because with the added points in qualifying, it meant that Lawson had further eked out his advantage in the standings, and made winning the races all that more important. And by the way, yeah, points here are awarded for qualifying. So when that green flag dropped for race 1, there was nothing for it. Kelvin absolutely sent it into the hairpin and ended up halfway to Munich by the time he scrubbed off enough speed. Not ideal for Liam, who fell behind Gotts due to the stunt, but that was okay. He had points in hand. Kelvin didn't really have that luxury, and was now in a world of hurt thanks to that absolute launcher on the opening lap. Gotts moved into the lead, and he would stay there until the end, doing everything he could to give him a real shot at that title. Liam was sitting a comfortable third to make life a little easier for Sunday. Van der Linde, meanwhile, had the uncanny sight of Cassidy sitting in his rearview mirror. Normally, this wouldn't be such a bad thing, but because almost everyone, except for Cassidy, had completed their pit stops, and because the Norisring is only really a couple meters longer than your average slot car track, Cassidy was in fact due to lap Kelvin. This dude dead-ass ignored the blue flags for the vast majority of the race, and when Cassidy finally did make his pit stop and came out ahead of Kelvin, it took another screamer to get past Cassidy in the dying laps to get 4th place, as Nick provided the best rear gunner support to ever come out of Auckland. Overall, interesting race. They all did everything they could, and it was entertaining for what it was. But then, Sunday happened.
Ja.
Now, Van der Linde understood that with an 18-point deficit heading into the final race, he needed to pull out all the stops, especially with Lawson having taken pole again and extended that lead to 19 points. Most would have expected aggression on that opening lap, and, as you may have guessed, it got a little out of hand. Van der Linde slammed into the side of Lawson's car, bent the steering, and effectively forced Lawson out of contention for that race. This immediately set social media alight, and this also meant that for Gotts, this was on. He could win this. Van der Linde held on to third for as long as he could, making himself the widest Audi in the world, which in and of itself is some feat. But these, shall we say, interesting driving habits played against him when he cut a tyre and threw himself out of contention. And oh boy, did that get a reaction. It also meant that he couldn't beat Lawson in the championship. Liam can still win this thing. The gap between he and Gotts is still in third. Oh wait, hang on. Those top 3 are all Mercedes, eh? That can only mean one thing. With a couple laps to go, the 2 leading Mercs of Lucas Auer and Philip Ellis perform what Nelson Piquet would call opening the legs. Cassidy, after being half a lap down at the start due to that freaking stunt, fought his way to the front, a drive and act of gallantry worthy of the freaking Victoria Cross. But as a final act of assholism, some of the Merc Brotherhood shoved Cassidy into the wall and killed his chance of going after Gotts. This gifted Maxi Gotts the race win and the DTM Championship. With all the fireworks and euphoria surrounding the moment, the paddock and the fans alike all reacted to this in unison. What a f***ing joke. To have a fantastic championship finish in this way is about the most pathetic thing to happen in motorsport. What an embarrassment. I thought only MLB could f*** up this badly. Sorry for swearing. Passion. Now honestly, the team order situation was such a rancid thing to happen, but really? Any other manufacturer would have done the exact same thing had the
True. Das muss man halt sagen. True. Jeder Hersteller würde den Titel saven wollen.
opportunity come up. There was nothing in the rules that forbid that, so whilst it sucked, it was pretty much fair game, to be honest. What it all really stemmed from was that first lap incident. Now,
Yeah.
Kelvin's attitude before the race was a little off. There was clearly animosity between himself and Liam. Perhaps he thought there was this elaborate covert Illuminati scheme crafted by AF Corsa to dismantle the workings of Audi. And after Liam got away without penalty on this very debatable incident with Alice in race 1, I mean, I don't know. All I do know is that this incident has set back New Zealand-South Africa relations 40 years. Minus the flower bombs and subpar made-for-TV movies. At best, this move was a horrible mistake. At worst, well, I don't know if I really want to spell it out for you. He later admitted that he screwed up and that he was sorry for the whole debacle. In any case, this has left a stain upon his career. And right now there are some people saying, what career? I've seen a few people saying that GT drivers such as him are jealous of these young drivers coming through and that it proves why they were not good enough in the open wheeler scene.
Aber Kelvin van der Linde ist ja auch ein noch ziemlich junger Fahrer. Kelvin van der Linde ist 29. Lawson 23. Alter, okay. Never mind.
And to that I say, you haven't got a f***ing clue what you're on about. Yes,
Fast schon Rentner, echt?
This was a crappy thing to happen that day, and trust me, I was tore up as much as anyone else when Calvin plastered that Poundland Lambo into the side of Liam. I try to be as impartial as I can, but in this case, bugger that, I wanted Liam to win this thing. But
Ich finde es halt so lustig, dass Calvin mit dem Red Bull Junior aneinander gerät und ich glaube 2 oder 3 Jahre später hat er ein Red Bull Sponsoring.
make no mistake, Calvin van der Linde is a hell of a driver. There is a reason why Audi have him perpetually in that R8. He has proven time and again that if you want to win in an R8 GT3 car, you've got to have him. Using a lack of an open wheeler career as an excuse to write someone off is absolutely asinine, because newsflash, the sport is a little expensive. Sometimes open wheel categories that cost millions per year is not a viable option for some of these drivers. So yes, criticize the move all you want. How he reacted on social media during that time was also not on. But for some of the abuse being flung around, going after his family and discrediting his ability behind the wheel, come on people, please do better. Since this weekend, Helmut Marko and Liam Lawson have both stated they're not coming back to the championship, which I don't blame them for, and DTM boss Gerhard Berger admitted himself that that weekend was a mess and that he needed to solve it for the years to come. And hopefully they do, because it lessened the championship win for Gotts, even though he definitely deserved it. It's put a stain upon Mercedes and van der Linde, even though they don't deserve the visceral hate they're getting, and it robbed Liam of a fair chance to challenge for the title that he deserved. It just sucked. The whole weekend sucked. We should have been celebrating it at this stage. But I suppose, if there's any solace to take from this weekend, at least we still got Kia Kaha.
Tell me why.
That's the meaning of life.
Wildes Video. Wildes Video, ja. Ja. Ich glaube, es ist alles gesagt tatsächlich. Es ist mal ein Reaction-Video, wo ich nicht so unglaublich viel zu sagen konnte. Es ist immer schade, wenn es irgendwas gibt, was dann sein Ende findet und man kann einfach nicht sagen, yo, war doch schön, war cool, war geil, sondern man geht mit so einem mulmigen Gefühl raus und ja, was willst du machen? Ich weiß, was ich machen will. Ich fahre jetzt eine Runde iRacing. Für die Leute auf YouTube, wenn es euch gefallen hat, Däumchen, Abo, bis demnächst. Ciao, ciao.